So this is the 2.4, the finger dance. And now a disclaimer, I learned the finger dance long before I found out that there was any such thing published in any book. The Illustrator Wow book or anything like that. I learned it back in 1997 when I was a young lad studying studying graphic design with some folks. Well, actually, as a student in a school in Minnesota. So anyway, I use the finger dance every day, all day, when I'm working in Illustrator, and there's a different one that's similar in Photoshop. You may be familiar with some of the shortcut keys, and I'm going to share my knowledge. And this is basically the beginning, the intro finger dance, so you know, kind of combining all of the things that we've talked about so far and then adding to it with some other things just to make it easy so it's all in one place. There are some things that I haven't included here because we haven't talked about the tools yet, and as we talk about those tools as they go forward, I will mention those things that you need to do. And basically all it is modifiers and shortcut keys. So let's get started. I will open a new document and we'll go with my preset, my custom, which I've been using so far, which is a letter size at landscape. And here it is. So first things first, we will quickly review the modifiers for the line segment tool. And the line segment tool is the backslash because Adobe is backwards. If you look at the icon, it is backwards from the backslash. So let's use that backslash on the keyboard. And to modify that with the finger dance, all you do is simply hold down Shift to constrain on the horizontal, vertical, or diagonal. Or you may constrain and expand that line from the center point where you began your click by holding down Alt. So that is Alt. Or you can combine Alt and Shift at the same time to get a line that is constrained about the center point, or expanding from the center point, constrained on the diagonal. Now if you'd like more depth on that, I discussed that in a previous video, 2.1 lines and shapes. Anyway, go look for it. I talk about the line segment tool a lot. Next, we have the pen tool modifiers, and again, this is just quickly review. With the pen tool, you can constrain your anchor points or your anchor point handles by holding down Shift. You can constrain your point vertically, horizontally, or on the diagonal from a point by holding down Shift. And you can also use just hover over an anchor point to use the remove anchor point tool. You can hover over a line to do the add anchor point tool. You can select using the control, unless you had the using the command or control to get the selection tool, unless you had prior the direct selection tool and then went to the pen tool. Then you will use the direct selection tool as you are selecting that point and move the anchor around. You can use the Alt key to create or convert the anchor point, and it's either a click or click and drag. Click to convert it back to a square or straight line anchor, and click and drag to create a curved anchor with handles on it, and you drag out those handles. So that is the pen tool modifiers. And that was Control A, Command A on a Mac, and then hit Delete afterwards. I'm going to get a, let's see, I'm going to go with an ellipse tool, and I'm going to make a round circle. And then I'm going to get my pen, and I'm going to draw some things within the circle to kind of make a little icon here, and I'm going to go with my ellipse tool again. We'll make some eyes and we'll switch them, and then I will copy, and I'll show you that function here in a little bit. And then I'll grab my pen tool again, and I will make this happy little guy who just is thrilled about Adobe Illustrator. So one thing you may notice is as I'm drawing, I can do some editing to it. So I have in my active tool, I have the pen tool. Now if I hold down Control, I'm going to get the previous selection tool, or the selecting tool, that I was using. In this case, it is the selection tool. So V for vector, selection tool. However, let's say if I click on a path, I want to edit something on this path. Well, I can't do that with the selection tool. All I can do is select. I want instead the direct selection tool, so I can A for anchor, grab this anchor point, and move it so it's not sticking out past the circle here.
So with the pen tool selected again, I'm going to choose A for anchor. And then I have the anchor tool, and then I'm going to go back to the P for pen tool. And then that is when I start my drawing. So I can make a drawing and just make a bunch of points with my pen tool, and then when I want to select something, when I hold down Control or Command on a Mac, at this point you can see I have the direct selection tool. So now I can click a point and move it, I can click a different point and move it, but I still have, it's like I have two tools in my hand and I'm only using one of them at a time. So right now I have the direct selection tool, and then I can switch back to the pen tool, and then I can go back to the direct selection tool, and then I can go back to the pen tool, and then all of the pen tool customization options like convert anchor point, add anchor point, and then into the selection, the direct selection tool, and I can just keep doing that without going back on the toolbar to either the pen or the direct selection tool, or by hitting the shortcut keys. I don't even have to lift my hand from the point where I'm over the Command on a Mac or Control on a PC, and I can just do it immediately right there. Okay, so let's go again to our drawing here, and with that, let's select using, again I have the pen tool, let's select by holding down Control or Command and clicking that anchor point, and then while I still have Command held down or Control held down, I can move that anchor point wherever I'd like. Let's do the other side, and there we go. And now I have my artwork like I wanted. I can click this, delete it, and now it's not in the way. All right, another example, let's select everything. So Control A, oops, I'm not on the artboard, Control A, and then delete. So let's draw, I think last time in my class I did a dinosaur, and I'm going to remedy my pitiful looking dinosaur that I created. So in this case we'll start with the tail, and I will drag out my anchor points, get my handles, and then we'll go up over the back and down the spine to the neck. Really nice big head. Let's add the smile a little later. Add his mouth. Okay, and then I want to stop at that point and move where go to the other end, and so I'll hold down Control and click off the path, and then come to the end, pick it up, and draw the tail. That one kind of stunk. Grab the direct selection tool so I can move that point. And then, I'm not really sure. Let's go here. Nice stubby legs. Pick up there. And you see all I need to do is just switch. I'm still using the pen tool, but I can just switch how I'm modifying that tool by my shortcut keys, my modifiers. I can adjust my lines if I need to. Much better looking dinosaur than the one I had in class. Maybe still edit that just a little bit so it doesn't look as weird. So anyway, now I've got my dinosaur. Let's give him a nice smile and some eyes with the ellipse tool. Get a default fill. Oops, that's not what I wanted. And I'll show you that shortcut key there in a second. Back to the pen tool. And move those eyelids. Actually, I'll add a line there. Click on that point, hit delete. I'm working with a new keyboard, so if it looks like I'm clicking something and it sounds like I'm clicking something but it doesn't do anything, that's because I'm getting used to it. It's a gaming keypad, and like I said, I'm just getting used to it. So I don't have all of my custom keys down yet. I need Shift X. There we go. Here's my happy dinosaur. So that's using the pen tool and the modifiers, part of the finger dance with the pen tool. Also, when I'm going to use, so again, when I want to use the pen tool, I plan ahead, and so I pick up a pen. That's how I remember it. When I want to draw with the pen tool, I pick up a pen, and so it's A, P. So that way, again, I have the pen tool in my hand. I have the direct selection tool right nearby so that I can easily switch from the pen to the direct selection tool. I also do that whenever I'm going to draw a rectangle. So A for direct selection tool, M for the rectangle tool, and then I can draw my rectangle and immediately use my direct selection tool to select anchors, to select lines, to manipulate it in any way that I would like to do, you know, change the curve, those kind of things. I'm going to undo with Command or Control U, or excuse me, Command or Control Z. And so then I will show you one other thing with the, again with the modifiers using the direct selection tool. If you have the direct selection tool and you click on a shape that has a fill, and I've discussed this probably more than once, if you click on it, it turns that selection into the entire object. You can select the entire object by clicking on an object that has a fill, if you just click anywhere on that fill. For example, this pterodactyl, I don't know. This dinosaur body has a white fill, so I can select this body part. I can select the, I guess I don't have a fill on this dinosaur, so you can't use that. However, if you have the direct selection tool held down or selected by holding down Command from any tool, you can also hold down Control, or excuse me, Alt, and that will bring up the group selection tool, so I can click on a line and grab that whole line. Okay, and again, as you look, if you look down here in the corner what tool I have selected, it's the rectangle tool. All I'm doing is holding down Control or Command and then clicking or holding down also the Alt key, so I can go one or the other. So for example, let's take this rectangle and let's switch the color to no fill with a black stroke, and that for me is just going to be swapping those because that's what I have here. So Shift X will swap the colors, and then I can use my direct selection tool, but I can't select that rectangle, so I can hold down Control or Command and Alt or Option at the same time and click that line, and now I have that rectangle selected. Now when you want to move something that you have selected, if it's the whole object or any part of the object, when you start to drag, even with the direct selection tool, it kind of turns into this move tool looking thing, and it's the direct selection tool functionality, so you can move things, and you can tell that by looking at that arrow. It's black without a point, so you're moving whatever you have selected. If I select just this anchor point here and then start to move it, again my arrow turns black as though I am moving, and that's I don't know the technical term of it. I've never bothered to look, but it looks to me just like a move tool from Photoshop, so I'm going to call it the move tool. If it's something else, well, you know, it does that's what it does. Once you have something selected and you start dragging it with your selection tool, it's the move functionality. Okay, so there you go. And again, I let go of my modifiers. I'm back with the rectangle tool. I can draw more rectangles wherever I'd like. Same works with the ellipse tool and all of the other shape tools. So I make a circle by holding down Shift with the ellipse tool. I can hold down the Control, and if the whole thing is selected, I can click on the center. I could also click on the center of a rectangle. But what if I don't have access to that center, if it's hidden behind something? For example, let's give it the default fill and move that forward to the front, and we'll discuss that in our next lesson. So I can't select this object back here. I don't know where it is, but if you have your smart guides on, when you start to maneuver over that path, you can see where it is, but now you see that center point, And while I'm hovered over the path, you can see the center point, but you can tell I can't select it because now it wants to select the one in front. So again, just hold down Control or Command and Alt or Option at the same time. Click that path, and there you have ability to move that from behind. It'll still be behind, but it's in a different position now. Okay, hopefully that will make sense as we get into arranging in the next lessons. So finger dance works with ellipses. You can modify. Again, I still have the ellipse tool. That's what I have selected. I can make ovals, whatever. And then if I want to drag out a point, let's move that over there. Drag out a point, I just click off and then grab that single point, and then I can make an egg shape. So now I've got some dinosaurs and their eggs. Isn't that awesome? It works the same with the star tool, with the polygon tool. So just bear in mind that whenever you think of whenever I want to create a shape, grab the A tool and then whatever tool that is. So AL for an ellipse. Sorry, that's grammar for you. AM for a rectangle. AP for a path with the pen tool. AB for a brush line with the paintbrush tool. AN for an or a line with the pencil tool. Whenever you think of what you're going to do, you're planning ahead, grab the A tool first. So I can't stress this enough. I want to, and I'll show you that it works with, even my favorite, the star tool. So I want to create a star, so I'll go to A, and then I'll go to the star tool, and now I can create a star, and then Control will allow me to grab points on that star and manipulate them wherever I would like. Okay, I hope this isn't too repetitive. It may seem a little boring, but this is critical stuff. And it'll save you so much time if you don't have to keep going back over to the toolbars, or even moving your fingers off the keys. If they just rest right above on your Mac, Command Option Shift, and if they rest right above on your PC, Control Alt and Shift, if that's where they stay, my job will be done. And you will have so much a better experience working with Illustrator. And that's called the finger dance. And so there's a lot of other things that we can do with the finger dance. So let's move into it. I am going to show you the hand tool. And now I've mentioned this a couple of times when we went and did our tour around the toolbar. I showed you how you can switch to the hand tool by going over here to the hand on the toolbar, or by using H, or there's another one. If your fingers are resting over Command and Option and Shift on your Mac, or Control and Alt and Shift on your PC, an easy move is over to that space bar. And I'll show you why you would want to do that. Well, the hand tool modifier to get to the hand tool from anything. So right now, what do I have? I have the star, and you can see that down here. And I hold down the space bar. You can see my icon on my cursor has changed to the hand tool. The indicator down here has changed to the hand tool, and all I'm doing is holding down space. I let go, I've got the star back. So why would I want to do that? Well, let's say I want to put another star up here. So holding down the space bar, I can drag, and then boom, I have a star there. And then I can move it around. I can do whatever I want to with my artwork. But the interface is just so simple. If your hand is just resting right there above those three keys, Command Option and Control, Command Option and Shift on a Mac, Control Alt and Shift on a PC, just move over with your finger to the space bar, And there you go. You can move your artboard where you need it. Okay, that's fairly simple. Other things you can do while you are considering using the spacebar as part of your finger dance. So we have the 3 keys, Control, Alt, and Shift, or Command, Option, and Shift, and we add the spacebar to it. Well, when we add the spacebar to Command, let me move over here. I'm gonna show you what we can do. So I have my star tool. That's what's in my hand. I'm not pressing any keys, but I hold down Control or Command, and then I hold down spacebar at the same time. Now, if you're on a Mac, you're going to get the spotlight search thing. Ignore that. But look what happened to my cursor. I now have the zoom tool. On my little custom gamepad thing that I have here, I even took out the Z as an option. I don't ever use the zoom tool because of this functionality. It's right built in to these two tools, or these two modifiers. So again, Control or Command and Shift, and I'll get the zoom tool. And then what I do with the zoom tool, and this is on the 2015 version, you'll see it. You start and pretend as though you're making your art or your viewable window. Okay, so you start in the upper left corner and drag down to the lower right corner, and then we're zoomed in. And I need to move that. I still have my finger on the space bar, so I just pick up that Control key or Command key, and now I can move my artwork where I would like it. To zoom out, there's 2 options. You can go in the reverse. So start in the lower right corner and kind of drag your cursor up to the upper left. And a lot of people think that's not very intuitive. There's a reason for it. When you think of zoom in, zoom up, zoom down kind of things, you'd think, hey, well, what if I drag from the center point up? Well, that can work too. And then you can drag down. Now I've got it all sorts of out of whack. So zoom up is very difficult to control. Zoom down, also difficult to control. So it's better if you if you're zooming in with that upper left corner and pull it down to the lower right, and if you're going out, go from the lower right to the upper left. It makes sense when I show you why, and I'll show you that here in just a second. So I've been, like I said, using Illustrator since 1997, and I have still on my computer. When CC came out, I kept CS6 on, and then when it upgraded to 2015, I kept the 2014 version. Up until 2014, and I can show you this either on that or on CS6. I think I'll just go with the 2014 version because it's right here in front of me. Up until that point, when you zoomed, the functionality was a little different than what you just saw. And part of it has to do with being able to use the the GPU processor in your computer itself to render these things. So let's make a new artboard, a new document in my artboard, or on my desktop here. And so I have this new document, and let's go pull a star tool, because you know that is one of the most fun tools in the world. And so we have a bunch of stars, and then I'm going to move. So as you can see, as I was all of these with the pen tool, shortcut keys, part of the finger dance that I've been mentioning, use the shortcut keys. They've all been part of the software to pick since '97 or whenever they were implemented into the system. And I can do that because my selecting what happens when I try to zoom using this older version of the software. So I'll do the same, holding down Control or Command, press, and then holding down the space bar. I still get that thing. It's all I need to do is just press the modifiers, and I can. So if you're on a PC, you won't see that. But when I want to zoom, I actually, without create this window and dragging a window keyboard without going to where a toolbar, the height of this window or the width, whichever most constrains to the aspect ratio of my monitor, you can do that's where it's going to zoom in a whole lot faster. So think of that when you're looking, when you're doing any work with the zoom tool in 2015 version. Think of shortcut. I'm creating this box sort of thing around where I want to zoom in. And then when you let go, it zooms in, so that you too and everything's as happy as it always has been. Make your your dinosaurs. That's why it looks that way. That's why, and I'll switch back over to the current version. So again, I'll do the same functionality. I'll zoom in. You see it's fluid, and it's helpful because then I can stop where I want to zoom. Where I want that zoom to stop, and work with my artwork there, as opposed to kind of the confusing, well, where'd my stars go? There. All my stars. So instead of the confusing, I don't really know what this box is going to look like. Okay, that kind of makes sense. That was about where I wanted to go, maybe a little different. And so that, just bear in mind, that's why it is the way it is. So don't worry about it. But just know it's not a straight up and down zoom. When you look at some of the other interface controls and you want to zoom up or zoom down, you're not going in a straight vertical line. And I'll quit out of this. I don't want to save. You want to make sure that it's a nice diagonal motion. Upper left, lower right to upper left. And then you should be able to zoom in to where you would like. Okay, so that's the zoom functionality of the finger dance. Okay, so after the zoom tool, here is the other thing. I know I just mentioned that I don't use the Z key on my new keypad. Well, I also programmed in these next functions as custom hotkeys, so that's why. And it is Command or Control Z, and that will undo. If you're familiar with most other applications, Microsoft Word, the other Adobe applications, just about anywhere on your computer, if you Control Z, you're going to undo. Or if you Command Z on a Mac, you're going to undo. And then, with the exception of the Microsoft products, a lot of the redo function is Command Shift Z or Control Shift Z. So let's get right to it here. And again, I have them controlled on my keyboard as a hotkey, so don't worry about that, but the functionality is still the same, holding down Control Z, and I'll do it with my regular keyboard just to prove that I'm not so far advanced beyond you guys. So let's make a star, let's make another star, and another star, and another star, and now I have stars all over my dinosaur. I don't want the stars there, so Command Z on my Mac, Control Z on your PC will undo those. Oh, you know what? I actually do. I want them back. So Command or Control plus Shift plus Z, and there you go. Make sense? Easy peasy. And the interesting thing is, with Illustrator, you can have quite a few undos. It tells me I have one redo. There it is. No redos, 185 undos. I could step back through them, but it kind of plays like an animation. Excuse me. I'm going to make it full screen here. And just start undoing everything. You can just undo all that I've done. All my fine work is gone. And I'm just holding down Control or Command and Z, and it'll go back quite a ways. And it'll only go back to this point because if you've noticed, I had to stop recording that day, and so now I'm back in studio, and so it'll look a little different. And then I can redo, and I'm rebuilding my dinosaur. And this again is Command-Shift-Z on a Mac, Control-Shift-Z on a PC. And this is how Illustrator does undo and redo. And now I've got my stars back on my dinosaur, so I think we've caught up. Okay, the next shortcut key actually is probably the most important in the whole program, especially if you are not using 2015 and just following this along to learn the basics. A lot of the things we've discussed are applicable to, as I've shown you, the other programs or the other versions of the program. But this is one distinction where 2015 version of the Creative Cloud, Adobe Illustrator Creative Cloud version is really different, and it will help you and save your life. Otherwise, you might just lose very important artwork. So I am going to, at this point, fake the computer into thinking that I've crashed the system. And so I'm going to do that with a force quit, and I'm going to force quit Illustrator. Yes, do it. Goodbye, dinosaurs. We don't really want you anyway. However, it wasn't a real computer crash. It was a force quit, which makes the computer, makes Illustrator do something that is pretty helpful. So I'm going to reopen Adobe Illustrator CC 2015, and I will show you the cool feature that is part of the new system. So it says Adobe Illustrator quit unexpectedly. Any open documents that could be recovered with unsaved information are named file name recovered. Okay. And you can change your settings as to how frequently it auto saves. I haven't done that yet because I haven't had the need to modify. Whatever it does by default is obviously good enough for me at this point. And here you have it, all of my stars, all of the eggs, all of the dinosaurs, the shapes, everything I've been working with. I can even scroll up here to see the big one that I put off on the side of the artboard. So it keeps everything within the document, and that is only, again, with the 2015 version of Adobe Illustrator CC. However, I am going to tell you the most important shortcut key is Control Save. So Control S or Command S on your PC, or yeah, you know what it is. Command S on your Mac, Control S on your PC, and it will give you, where's my, I thought I had a shortcut key for it. Anyway, so I will do save, and it will give me the dialog box if it's my first time, and that's just fine. And then the next time I save it, say I move something and even move it back, well, I move something, hold on. You can tell that it hasn't been saved because it'll have a little asterisk right after the name here. So untitled1 recovered.ai asterisk. And then if I hit Command S or Control S, it will save, and you don't have that dialog box again. You can do the other options for save as if you want to save it somewhere else or in a different format or whatever, but you can see it's saved because there's no little asterisks. So I can undo and put my dinosaur back where he goes and save again. So the shortcut that I would like you to remember is Control S or Command S, and that will give you this let me move some stuff out of the way. This little acronym, and it will, this is how I remember, and it's SASO, and I'll make it nice and big for you. So, save always, save often. Save always, save often. Remember that. That should be your mantra while you're working. Save always, save often. And that'll help you, actually, if you forget to turn on the saving function of the Creative Cloud 2015 version, or if you're on 2014 or CS 5, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1, all the way back to Illustrator 7 and 2 and 3. You know, as far back as Illustrator goes, you should save and save often. In fact, I dare say you should save and save always, save often in any program you're working with, so you don't lose your work. Just common sense there. Anyway, so SASO, and how can you remember save always, save often? Well, because I say so. And there you go. All right, so that is that. Let's move on. You know what I just realized? I forgot to tell you something back when we were talking about the zoom commands for the finger dance. So let's assume that I am zoomed in, again with Control and the spacebar, or Command and the spacebar. I am zoomed in on, say, this point of the star right here, and I've just finished editing it or whatever. And I want to bring the screen back to fit the artboard within the window. And there's an easy way to do that. Go to View, down to Fit Artboard in Window, and you'll see the shortcut key for it is Command 0, and that's a 0, not an O. Command 0 on a Mac, or Control 0 on a PC. And again, that's one that I have hotkeyed onto my keyboard. So Control 0, Command 0, there it is. And as you can see, it fills the active artboard into the screen. Now let's assume I have a second artboard, so Shift O to bring my artboard tool, grab another artboard, and we'll stick it right there. And I can do another one and put it, oops, I need to maneuver some things, so hold down the space bar to move, drag my artboard around to where I need it, and stick it right there. Okay, and then escape to get out of the artboard tool. Now, when I Command 0 or Control 0, I'm going to be on whichever active artboard I have. So let me get back to the V tool because I can, and that will help me select. So you can see this subtle little black line. Hopefully you can see that. I will zoom in so you can see the difference between this artboard and this artboard. You can tell that this one is selected and that one's not. If you're ever confused or you can't see the difference, go down here to the bottom of your window and you can see which artboard you have selected, and it'll be in this window. So mine says 3, and I can go, you can navigate this way. I can click on 2, or I can click the arrows to go back and forth between my artboards. Now I don't have anything on this artboard, so let's put something there, and let's go to the next one and put something there. Of course, what am I going to put there? A star, because I like stars. It's getting kind of close to Independence Day, can you tell? So anyway, here's number 3, number 2, number 1, and you can flip through them that way. However, again, let's zoom in somewhere. I'm going to be on that star point for whatever reason I'm there. Let's go to View, and you can see Fit All in Window. Well, that's interesting. What does that do? So that, again, the shortcut key for Fit Artboard in Window is Control 0 or Command 0, and so the Fit All, just think of Alt Command 0 or Alt Control 0, and I will show you that. So Alt Control 0. Well, it fits all of my artboards within the window. Isn't that convenient? So now, if I don't want to pick between one or another, I can just do it that way. I can go to either Command 0 or Control 0, or Command Alt 0 or Control Alt 0, And there I have all of them. Okay, so let's get moving. So what do we do with objects once they're selected? How can we move them? So for example, let's select this text here. I'm going to hold down with whatever tool I happen to have. It's a star. I can hold down the control or command on a Mac, control on a PC, and you see my cursor changes to the direct selection tool. I can click on that text and delete it because I don't want it there anymore. Is that moving? Yeah, technically it's moving because I got rid of it. Then what you can do, as you either with the selection tool or direct selection tool, and I'll show you both, you can drag and move objects. So let's do some of both. So I have the direct or the selection tool on my as my alternate. That's not my alternate, as my control. So my command or control button will bring my my selection tool. And so I can click on this object, this star. I can move it any old place on any artboard, wherever I would like. I can move it, and you can see some things. Number one, you can see my smart guides trying to align it to different things. So if I have this point, I can align it to this point on the rectangle. I can move it to another point. I can move it to align with directly on a point, and you can see it snap to point because of that functionality. Remember when we talked about units and rulers and guides and grids, we talked about snapping to point. So that is right here, snap to point, and that's the functionality I'm using. So I can snap it to a point. I could turn on my grid and snap it there. And also my smart guides help me to align things just in general. For example, I want to align this corner with this corner of the other star, this and also with that rectangle. Now I see there's an intersection there. So I'll just let go and it has snapped to that point. Let's get rid of this rectangle because it's kind of in the way, and I will move my star over to this one. Let's give it the default fill because I would rather have the black fill, so we go with default, and then I'm going to Shift X to swap those colors just so I have something for contrast. So as you move an object, you can just drag it, you know, wherever you want, and try and keep it in line with the if you have your smart guides on, or you have the snapping or a grid, or while you are dragging it. So in my case, I'm dragging it while holding down the command key. You could be doing it holding it down by holding the control key on your PC, but then also you could do it just with the with the selection tool itself without modifying another tool to get to the selection tool. You know what I mean? So I have the star tool. I can either hold down the selection or hold down command or control to get the selection tool, or I could just straight up go to my V on my keyboard and get the selection tool. Whichever you prefer. I would rather see the using the modifiers command for this. However, what you know, it's regardless. It's your preference. So I have this star, and I want to make a copy of it. Actually, first I want to constrain it. So while dragging it, I want to constrain. So I hold down Shift. And as you see, it stays, and you can see the DY in that little heads-up display there. It is moving in the Y-axis, so up and down, 0 points. So it is constrained to that. And remember, when we had our shape tools that we were drawing, we could constrain on the 45-degree angles, the horizontals, and also the verticals. So it doesn't matter which direction I move across this vertical. If it's constrained to the vertical by holding down Shift, it's going to be constrained to it. That's what that means. Okay? And I can go any artboard, any direction, and constrain it in those angles. So it's moved over here now. That's fine and dandy. What about if I want to make a copy of it? I hold down the Alt key, and when you press the Alt key, you see what happens. It turns into it looks like a black one and a white one. It looks like a copy. If you are familiar with the old carbon copy system of long ago, you would have a white piece of paper and you would put a black piece of paper that was full of carbon inside of it, and well, it was made of carbon, and then you would put the next document underneath, and then when you pressed hard on the top piece of paper, it would go through to that other one. That's what this reminds me of. It is a carbon copy, so it's exactly the same, and you can tell that because if I release, then you can see that it's exactly the same as that previous one. I'm going to undo because I want to show you that again. So holding down Alt while dragging will give you a copy. And you can put that copy anywhere. And you can click and do multiple copies wherever you'd like. Okay? So that's holding down the Alt key. And the previous was holding down the Shift key to keep it constrained. Now, if you notice there, let me show you that again. One thing to be careful of, if you are selecting and moving at the same time, but you want to constrain, make sure that when you select, you immediately, let me grab another one, that you immediately start to move it before holding down the Shift key. Otherwise, if you hold down Shift before you click with that selection tool, it will what's called toggle selection. And that's, you can see that down here in the indicator. It will toggle that selection. So right now it's selected. If I click it, it's deselected. If I click it again, it's selected, deselected, selected, deselected. You see what I mean? So you'll want to make sure that if you want to move that object that you have selected, let go of Shift first, be patient, and then as soon as you start to drag it, then hold Shift, and then you can constrain it to wherever. And that goes the same for if you would like to make a copy. Make sure that if you want to, you may also constrain your copy, but make sure that if you want to constrain a copy, you wait until you've started moving your object before holding down Shift. Otherwise, so I want to move this one, and so I'm going to hold down Alt so that I'm prepared to make that copy. And I forget, and I hold down Shift first. If I hold down Shift before I start moving, you see it deselected it. Okay, so holding down Alt, I'll click it, then hold down Alt, and then start moving, and then hit Shift after I've started moving. And then I can make my copy exactly where I want it, and that should help alleviate some headaches that you may find with that. Okay, so that is making moving objects and making copies. So again, critical point on this is if you want to constrain it on a horizontal, vertical, or diagonal, be sure you hit Shift after you've started moving it. Otherwise, you're just going to deselect it or select something else. So make sure to remember that part. So Shift will constrain vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. Alt will make a copy. Shift and Alt together, after you've started moving it, will make a copy and constrain it. Okay? All right, let's move on. So the next step I want to show you is moving and copying objects with precision. And for that, I'm going to clean this artboard over here, this third artboard. I will hit delete. I will zoom into that artboard, and I will grab this star from the other artboard and make a copy of it and kind of put it right here in the center somewhere. Okay, so now we have something to work with, and I want to use the default colors, and I want to increase the stroke so that you can see what's going on here a little better. And I'm going to bring that stroke to the inside of the shape, just, you know, a preference for what I want to show. And then I will make sure that I have that selected. Now on your keyboard, that's how we can do some precision movements. As you see, if I use my stylus or my mouse, and even if I'm holding down shift to constrain it, I can't be exactly sure where, you know, I can move it in certain distances, but I don't really know exactly where I want to put it. So let's say I have something that I know exactly how far that distance is. Now, bear in mind, this is going to be in points. The measurement we're going to use is points regardless. I'll turn on my rulers. I'll go up here. I'll change my ruler, my unit of measure from points to inches, and it doesn't matter. It's going to be points because points are the basic unit in most of our designs, even if we're using inches, because points are, you know, 72 points to an inch, just for reference. So it's going to move in points. Bear that in mind. If you want to move it more precise than that, you're going to have to probably just zoom in and barely touch or move it with your stylus or your mouse. This is precision, but it's limited to using it with points. So I have my arrow keys on my keyboard, and I have them programmed into my keypad so that I will only click once per movement of my joystick. It doesn't matter for you. Just consider, as you move these, I'm going to show you in 1 point increments at this point. So I'm going to move up 1 point, up 1 point, up 1 point, and you can barely see it move, but it is moving. If I zoom in just a little bit, you can see it even more. And then we'll center it again on the screen. So 1 point up, 1 point to the left, 1 point to the left, 1 point down, 1 point to the right. You can see that it's moving fairly precisely. So that is helpful. What if I want to move more than these single point increments? Well, for that, simply hold down shift while the object is selected. And again, I have my stylus up off the pad. I have my mouse away from the desk. I'm not touching it. And so as I hit shift, as I hold shift and hit right, it's going to move 10. If I go up, it's going to move 10 up. As long as I have the shift button held on my keyboard, it's going to go 10 points in that direction. And I can, you know, add multiple directions, left and right, or excuse me, left and down at the same time, or one after another, and it just goes through those in 10-point increments. Why would you want to do this? Well, let's say you have a piece of artwork that you're trying to line up and you know that it's just almost there, and that might help you get it in place. Okay, so that is holding down shift with the arrow keys. The next one is to hold down alt. And now I'm going to warn you, be very, very, very careful when you want to use this. I'll show you on my keyboard. now because when I'm using the keyboard, it does not constrain to 1 point per, and so that's what it's going to be like for you. So if I hold down Alt and go to the left, as I hold down Alt, look at my cursor again. If I hold down Alt, it makes that carbon copy symbol. So it's going to make a copy every time I click the arrow. So if I click once, it's made a copy, twice, 3, 4, 5, and now I have 5 copies of that thing because I have my I'm still holding down Alt. If I let go and then maneuver, I can still do whatever, but it's only going to use that top copy. The other copies are going to remain where they were. Okay? So I can put it back where it was, and then I can go in a different direction. And it's going to make a copy in any direction that I move it, as long as I'm holding down Alt. And you can tell by the symbol on the icon, the cursor itself. Okay, so that's making a copy. Now, as you probably have guessed, I can make a copy and constrain it or move it in 10-point increments. Excuse me. So holding down Alt and then holding down Shift at the same time, every time I click, it makes a copy 10 points away from the previous. And I'll just keep doing that for a little bit so you can see that. And each time I click. So if I'm not paying attention and I hold it down, holding down my modifiers here in this part of the finger dance, and I hold down my arrow, it's going to just start going crazy and making copies. So that's why I say use this with caution. Be very careful. Make sure you're doing what you want to do. I am going to make sure that I have one of these selected, and then I'm going to, where did it go? One of them, and then select all of the other ones and delete them so they're not in my way. And I'll go back to full screen, zoom, Command 0, Control 0. Okay, so now I have one of those objects. So what I would suggest doing if you would like to use this precision functionality and you want to make copies and whatever you want to do. Let's say I want to make a copy of this star 50 points to the left. In order to do that, what I will first do is hold down Alt and Shift and click to the left exactly one time. Now I know that that is 10 points from the origin, and it's to the left. And so then I will let go of Alt, but keep having, I will keep my finger on the Shift key, and then arrow left, 2, 3, 4. And so 4 plus the first one makes 50 points. I know that this star is 50 points exactly left of the original one. So just keep in mind when you're working with these precise controls that you can have some really crazy things. What if you happen to want to do a copy every 10? So Shift and Alt, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you want to skip 1 and then do excuse me. And then you want to Shift and do a space of like 5. So I'll make my copy holding down both Shift and Alt, 1, and then I'll let go of Alt and go 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and see, you can make really interesting looking patterns and designs, and each of these objects is individually selectable. So I can select them, and then I'll click all of these ones, and that actually deselects those top three, well, the top one and then the top of each stack, and then I'll change those to have a different stroke, and you see how you can make some really interesting designs and shapes. And so that is using these selection controls, these precision controls in the tool by using your keyboard instead of your mouse. Okay, now this is the last section of the finger dance that I'm going to show you at this time. I will mention modifiers throughout all of the tools that we learn, just because they will help you as you they will help you as you're working with Illustrator, and I will build on that as we go through. But again, this is the last section of the finger dance, and basically it's similar things that you probably already know from working with other programs, and that is how to copy and paste. There are some things that are a little bit different, and we will talk about those in the next lesson when we talk about grouping and alignment, placement, those things. So first, when you select something, you want to copy it to what's called the clipboard. You hold down Command or Control and hit the C key. So copy, and then you want to paste it. It's Control or Command and V, and there you have it. And then you can move your object wherever you'd like. We'll talk about, again, like I said, we'll talk about some things that you can do additionally in the next lesson. So be prepared for that. Thank you.